Hey Jennifer, I have a quote that I'm going to read for today's book. Are you ready to hear it?
Yes.
Okay, so the quote goes, Every morning I write a poem before I go to school. Mary had a little lamb, but I got a kid in HIV that follow me to school one day.
Damn.
Welcome to MILF,
I'm Courtney,
and I'm Jennifer.
and we are two moms into literary freedom. Okay, do you know what book that quote is from?
No.
So it is from the book called Push by the author Sapphire. And you might recognize it from the movie that it was turned into called Precious.
Okay, yes. Yeah.
hmm
And I've heard of the book because it's highly banned, but I haven't read that one yet.
Yeah, this is like probably one of the most controversial books because of the language, but it is so good and so important. And so that's what we're going to talk about today on this episode is like why this book should have a place. Her name is Clarice, the main character, and it's a fictional story, but we all know that these stories are written because, these things really happen to real people. So just
Right.
because this is a fictional story doesn't mean it doesn't happen to real people. When Clarice had her first child by her father, she was 12 years old.
Ooh,
That's middle school age.
yeah.
We've said this before, books like this need to be available for adolescents in these situations so that they know they're not alone.
Right. And this stuff happens. We know that that
Mhm.
happens.
They
I
don't
mean,
have to read it. We're not like forcing survivors of sexual assault to read these books, but that's their decision to make. That's their therapist's decision to make, right? Or to help them make, hopefully, if they're getting the mental health counseling that they need, which is
right.
another thing that we don't see in schools because we're spending all of our energy and resources banning books like this instead of saying, hey, how can we help students that are in these types of situations? Well, let's just ban all the books and pretend like it doesn't happen.
And yeah, that's a sad truth. That's exactly what they want to do is just sweep it under the rug.
hmm Like we should be having conversations about like, damn, this happens. What should we do about it?
Right.
Instead
How do
of
we
like,
make things better and prevent it from happening? And books like this have also, not this one in particular, but have helped victims come to light and say, like, this happened to me,
yeah.
or have a friend say, hey, my friend mentioned something like that happening to her,
hmm
and bringing attention to it.
It gives them like I can imagine an adolescent reading this book or coming across this book or even just reading the back of this book or watching the movie or whatever, or hearing a friend talk about this book and maybe that kind of giving them just that tiny bit of confidence they need to like say, I'm going to find my Mrs. Rain, which is the teacher in the book.
Mhm.
Or I'm gonna talk to someone that, I'm comfortable with at school, like a teacher that I like and can trust. So, I mean, that's the argument for the book. Like, what's the argument against the book? Like, yeah, the language is harsh. It's sad. It makes you feel uncomfortable feelings. And that's why these parents, they want to ban it, but I just don't know. Should I read one of the quotes now that
Yeah,
we've
yeah, because I
we've
haven't read this one. You read it, right?
yeah.
So,
So we've prefaced this is clearly not a junior episode. This is one of the hardest books I've ever read in my life.
really,
Yes. It was hard because like I couldn't put it down because I needed to know like what was going to happen to Clarice Precious. That was her nickname. And I just like really wanted it to have a happy ending, and it was really good writing, but it was so hard to read. And you'll find out why when I read this quote. But I also just want to just kind of give you a background. So Clarice she made it to high school somehow without knowing how to read. So she's a obese black 16-year-old who lives in Harlem, and she's already had one child, and she's pregnant with her second, both by her father, who has been sexually abusing her since the age of 3. And her
whoa.
mother has just let this happen her entire life and also sexually abuses her. So
The
it's
mom also sexually
yeah,
abuses her.
yeah.
Wow.
It's bleak. Go ahead.
That again does happen. Like I know firsthand, when I used to work for an attorney, he was a guardian ad litem for a child. And that case was very hard because, same thing, it wasn't a father. The mom allowed men to
Mm,
come in and abuse her daughter. And
it's
she would
awful.
also take part in it.
I'm
So
s-
it does happen, like
Mhm.
this is stuff that actually happens to children.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I just feel like I feel bad because this episode is super bleak and it's depressing, but it is just it's so important to talk about because of what you just said. And all the situations out there that are real. And also because like we're coming up on an election here that is so important for character or real people like Precious and the people that were impacted by the situation you just described to have abortion access and to have their reproductive rights so that they can not have to birth their father's child as one of dozens of examples. Like there are so many examples out there. Maybe it wasn't your father's child, but you were still sexually assaulted as a 12-year-old and now you are pregnant and you can't get an abortion because it's illegal even though you were raped.
Right. And we
In
see that
books,
happening all over.
I cannot believe that under Project 2025 and the shit that Trump has already shown us he's capable of, that
Mhm.
there is a possible future for our country in which a 12-year-old who is raped cannot get an abortion. I cannot believe that that is the reality that we live in. But that is
Right.
why books like this are so important because it reminds the moms for liberty or just the parents of the school that like this shit is real and it needs to be talked about so that we don't end up in this like dystopian society. You can't even get IVF.
It's insane the amount of like how backwards we're going.
Did you see that? Like all the Republican lawmakers that voted against IVF recently?
Yeah.
We'll put that in our show notes, but guess who happened to not be there for that vote? Just on accident.
Oh, I didn't see that part. Who?
JD fucking Vance. He
Ah,
just happened to not be there. I'm sure it was some sort of political strategy because they're in hot shit as it is.
right.
Because like they're just dancing around that. They're skirting around that question, Trump and Vance, even though Project 2025 is very clear.
Right.
And the things that they've said in the past is indicative that it'll be just impossible to get an abortion.
Yeah, and he's been changing his tune because he knows that a majority of the people, even Republicans, support IVF.
Yeah.
So
I
now
cannot
he's
believe this.
trying to skirt, like, no, I'm not with them. No, I didn't say that.
It's mind-boggling. Like I remember, being a teenager and like kind of like having these realizations of like the world that we live in, like learning about what an abortion is for the first time. And like coming to terms with like, well, why would anyone want to get, because teenagers are dumb. I was one of them. But like why would anyone want an abortion? And then you start thinking about it, you're like, oh yeah, I guess I would get an abortion if I got pregnant right now. And
Right.
it's like, oh wow, I live in a place where I could get one, like it's good to know that. Like if I was raped or not ready or whatever. But that was such a different world than right now. Like, how are we going backwards?
I grew up really religious, like my family. So always abortion was like a bad thing.
Mm.
Um, but I never thought in terms of like, I don't think it's a good thing. So the person next to me can't have one. It's
Right,
still
exactly. And that's how I thought too. It's like,
like
well,
it's bad for me, but you do
yeah,
you.
even as like a dumb 18-year-old who was clearly not, practicing smart, making wise decisions, like I probably wouldn't have gotten an abortion just because I wanted to have babies. And I was like, well, whatever, I'll do
Right.
it when it happens, right? But there are people that, that obviously every situation is different. And like the fact that as a society we can't come to terms with that, like you do you, is just so sad, but also encouraging to get out there and vote, not only for Kamala Harris, but also for Amendment 4 in Florida. And there are so many states in the country. We'll put this in our show notes, but there's like so many states in the country that in November they're voting on abortion access. Did you know that? There's like 15 states that have something similar to Amendment 4.
15.
Yeah,
Wow.
there's so many. There's like a really cool map. I'll put it in the show notes that kind of shows you like each state that's highlighted and it says like they're voting for full access or partial access or like Florida's
Oh, but
isn't.
you know what? We talked about this.
Oh, I don't remember all the things.
Yeah, I know. See, I forget things too. But we went through like a
Oh,
whole
we
list
did.
of
Yeah.
what states are working on it.
I mean, it's a very important issue, and that's why I chose this book to cover today because not only abortion, education, um childcare, cost of living, inflation, like all racism, all of these things are mentioned or you can see in this book.
Right.
And the author, her name is Sapphire.
That's her like pen name, I think. So
Okay.
she was born Ramona Lofton. I was looking it up right now.
Mm.
Um, in California, but then she writes under the name Sapphire.
And she was a teacher?
She in the 80s and the 90s, she taught writing to teenagers and adults in Harlem.
Oh, just like the teacher in the book, Mrs. Rain.
Oh, okay. So
So
she's
you haven't read it. So that reminds she might, as the author, be like, basing herself on the character Miss Rain, who is the GED teacher that Sapphire and or sorry, that Precious ends up going to.
okay. So
Hmm.
yeah, and I did read somewhere that it said that she based not on the character not on a specific person, Precious,
Hmm.
but just from different stories that she learned from her students.
See, so it
But there's a
isn't
lot of truth in the
I,
story.
I would not call this a fiction. Like technically it's fiction, but like
Right.
yeah, Precious is a representative or a representation of so many sad situations that we see that could be prevented and helped if we just came together as a society to help the young people in our country instead of hurting them, which is what it's the direction we're going into.
Right.
We've always been kind of going in that direction, but with Trump and Project 2025, it's going to be even worse.
Yeah, I feel, you know, this is, we've been dealing with a lot of school threats, not
Oh
just
yeah.
here in our district, but like across the nation, right?
I just got one this morning.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like never ending. The kids are all
Never
scared.
ending.
But you know what I started seeing? A
Mm.
lot of people commenting, I'm going to start homeschooling. I'm going to
Mm.
start homeschooling. And I'm like, I
Mhm.
wonder if that's another reason why they don't do anything about these shootings or threats of shootings.
Mm.
Because I know that defunding schools is part of their agenda.
Yes, yeah,
And the more kids are in private school or homeschooled, the less funds our schools have. And we see that our schools are currently being defunded by all these kids that have already been pulled for private school or homeschool.
right. That
So,
you make a really good point there because eventually you get to a point and you're like, this is being done on purpose, you know?
right. I mean, we know that obviously they don't want to get rid of their guns. It's guns over kids' lives.
Right.
It's already shown that.
Yeah,
But
like when
they're
they wear the AK, what is it, AK-47,
the pins.
the pins on their ties after a
Yeah.
school shooting, but when the fucking former president gets his ear grazed by a bullet, they all wear fucking ear bandages.
Right, right.
Disgusting. Go on.
So disgusting. And then they'll sit there and they'll say, what did JD Vance say? Something like, it's just a way of life. Like that's a
Yeah.
fact of life now. That
Yeah.
our kids and like, yeah, it is a fact of life, but it shouldn't fucking be one.
No,
Like
it shouldn't be. He said
fucking
that.
do
I don't know if this
something.
was real because I know he said that for sure.
Yeah.
In response to the most latest school shooting. Wasn't he behind bulletproof glass when he said that?
Yes, he was. He was.
Disgusting. I am at a loss for words.
Yep.
Well, I want to read a quote that Miss Rain, the teacher, who, reminds me of the actual author who has lived this experience, like she's lived these experiences. The teacher says this towards the end of the book. My students and I knew that their poverty was the result of a race, class, and gender system skewed against them. They were poor and uneducated by design, from de facto segregated school systems to gender discrimination and violence. The system was not just stacked against them, it was falling down upon them and crushing them. Do
Mm.
you think maybe that's why they want to ban books like this? Like
Most
they're
definitely.
saying it's because of all the lewd and lascivious language, but do you think maybe it's because it's gonna kind of reveal their nefarious motivations of defunding public school system and creating this like extreme caste system?
Oh yeah, they don't like when that's pointed out at
No.
all.
Hmm.
Is there anything that in the book that is really graphic in the sense that, I mean, obviously she's being
Yeah,
molested and sexually assaulted by her father.
I'll read it. It's almost like Moms for Liberty when they did their stupid little book report, right? They pick out like the quote that like makes you the most uncomfortable. And you're not supposed to feel comfortable all the time.
Right.
It's important to feel uncomfortable because that is how learning happens. And so one of the quotes that they chose is when her dad shows up because he doesn't live there. He just shows up whenever he wants to assault her. And I give a trigger warning for those of you that know yourselves and know that you don't want to hear a description of sexual assault. Okay, so here it goes. He stink. The white shit drip off his dick. Lick it, lick it. I hate that. But then I feel the hot sauce, hot cha-cha feeling when he be fucking me. I get so confused. I hate him, but my pussy be popping. He say, Big Mama, your pussy is popping. I hate myself when I feel good. So that's like one of the most feeling provoking
Right.
quotes that makes you just like, anyway, even as an adult woman who read this book, I was just the feelings that I had, it was not like, oh my God, I can't believe this is in a school and like what if kids read this or teenagers read this? It was more just like I hate to be reminded of the realities of our world,
Right.
but I don't want to be ignorant to it because I am a, privileged white woman who has never had to experience the atrocities that so many young women have experienced.
And just going off that too, we've talked about in other books where that's where sexual assault is part of it, how the victim struggles with enjoying
Yeah.
part of the sexual
And that's
um
something that you need to know. That's
right.
something that it's a conversation we need to have. It's
Yes.
stigmatized. Sexual assault is stigmatized in the same way that like masturbation is stigmatized and like feelings of pleasure. It's like women and girls are brought up to think that any sort of feeling of pleasure is your fault. Like you should feel shame for feeling that. It's just your body's response. It
Right.
doesn't because like someone forced you to do something that you didn't want to do and your body had a different reaction. That's not your fault. You're not a bad person because of that. But that's not a conversation that society wants to have, which results in these survivors of sexual assault having these conflicting feelings that no one wants to
Yeah.
talk about and they just
And
feel
feeling
alone.
shame, you know, because I can absolutely see how you can feel ashamed because your body reacted to what was happening to them.
And then you feel not only on top of that shame that you feel isolation. And what
Yeah.
does that lead to? Suicide
Depression.
attempts,
Yeah.
actual, you know, suicide. And I think and it's been a long time since I read this book, but I was reading some of the quotes to kind of help, jog my memory. But she did have a few suicide attempts because
Mm.
she was alone. She had no one to talk to. She slipped through the cracks of the system. She didn't have any. There's another quote that is just like so devastating. It's not nearly as I don't know, explicit, I guess is the word that you can use, but it's still so devastating. But it sums it up, pretty well. It goes, how mama and daddy know me 16 years and hate me. How a stranger meet me and love me. So that is in response to either Miss Rain or I think, and again, it's been a long time since I read this book, but I do remember there was a paramedic that came to her apartment when she had her second baby and her mom beat her as a response to finding out she was having a baby because I don't think she knew that she was having the second baby because of her weight.
Wait.
And and so she started going into labor and her mom, I guess like made I'm sure she suspected it all along, but like she was in denial and going through her own weird shit, I guess. And so she like beat her and then the paramedic came and just showed her the most like tenderness, gentle care.
Mm.
And she didn't understand that. She's like, how can you see value in my life when I don't see value in my life and my parents never saw value in my life?
Yeah, it
I
sounds
don't
so
know. It's just so
sad.
sad. Yeah. I mean, it's just this another example of how books like this build empathy.
Right. Yeah. I now is there anything in the book? where she has sex for enjoyment. Like she goes and finds someone else.
No,
So there's not even that salacious, you
no.
know, that they
Just the
could,
part that I just read to you, which was like describing how her body was reacting to, a physical stimulus.
right. So there's nothing in there like she found someone that she liked and they have sex.
No.
So there's no,
Mm-mm.
but this is not, and this is I think where we struggle a lot with Moms for Liberty. Just because there's sex in the book doesn't mean that it's something that's there to entice.
Exactly. And they
And I
know
think
that.
even
They're
when it's
acting like they don't know that, but they know that.
right, right.
Another part, her first child is a daughter that she has when she's 12. And in the book, the daughter has Down syndrome and she actually gets to visit the daughter. I don't exactly remember the situation, but like she
So
like
she gives
re
up the daughter for adoption.
yeah, and then she has a lot of guilt about that. And so when she's in her GED class, which I can't remember exactly how she got to that. And that's fine. I don't want to tell, I think you should, if you're listening to this, you should go out and read the book. The quote that I just read that was uncomfortable, it's just like we've talked about. It's one or two or three, I don't know, in like just a sea of beautiful writing, which is actually written in at her own like reading level. So words are spelled wrong. There's a lot of slang. It's kind of you have to reread it a couple times to try and figure out like how she's thinking because she's an illiterate 16-year-old. But then it's very well written because as the book progresses, so does her writing because she's learning through this GED class with Miss Rain. And Miss Rain has this like special notebook where she like Precious will write something like questions about life or like why, like how does this paramedic show me compassion when my mom has never loved me for 16 years? And then Miss Rain will write back. And so it's like helping her develop her reading and writing skills, but also a form of therapy with Miss Rain.
So those are the poems that she writes every morning. Is that from
I
the
think
poem
so.
in the beginning?
Yeah, it was like the because like she can't write at all. And so Miss Rain is like, your alpha like they went over the alphabet. And so they like she starts by just writing like Mary had a little lamb and then adds on to it, I have AIDS. Oh, that's right. We forgot to talk about that whole thing. Her dad gives her AIDS. So,
Wow.
yeah, or HIV, sorry. So somehow I think a part of the book too is like trying to figure out if her daughter, the daughter with Down syndrome that she had when she was 12 also has HIV. And in the book, they do reveal, I can't remember exactly, but I do remember either like one of them has it and one of them doesn't. I don't remember which is which. Yeah, just read the book to find out for yourself, but like, throw that into the mix
Right.
of terrible things that can happen to someone.
And HIV is something we still don't talk about enough.
Another stigmatized topic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw someone comment recently. I mean, I don't know if he was doing it just in his head because they're sick, trying to push a button,
Hmm.
but he was saying that, speaking on gay people, that they're the only ones that have HIV.
Yeah, that's
And I was
awful.
like,
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
"You-
People do that, like just what you said. You were absolutely right. He was just trying, I mean, he's trying to get a reaction.
right. But then I
But
also wonder, are they this dumb that they believe stuff like that?
I think it's half and
'Cause-
half. Yes,
Yeah,
because people like for example, Trump and his, Haitians eat cats and dogs
right.
in was that in Illinois?
Ohio, I think.
Ohio, wherever, yeah.
Springfield, Ohio.
That was a political maneuver to prevent people from talking about Project 2025 and abortion and all these
Hmm.
things. And it worked and it got the whole internet talking about it, right? But 50%, I don't know about some of the people actually believe that Haitians eat pets, and the other people recognize that it's just a political tactic to keep you from talking about the stuff that is really important or the stuff
Right.
that's actually happening. The women that are actually bleeding out and dying because they're not and leaving their kids motherless because they can't get an abortion,
Yeah.
which has happened. I mean, there's so many women, two or three that I learned about just from from keeping my eyes open and not looking the other way and like actually like listening to the stories that one of them, she actually had, do you know which one I'm talking about? She actually had a daughter. I actually found it because I follow Kamala's campaign on Instagram. Um,
Okay.
which just side note real quick, like I will 100% be voting for Kamala, but there are other things like fracking and, the illegal war crimes that Israel is committing on people,
Yeah.
with the exploding beepers in hospitals that children have died. And, there's only so much that we can do, and hopefully, like, this is a step in the right direction. But that being said, she did put out a statement in regards to the death of Amber Nicole Thurman, who suffered a grave infection in an Atlanta hospital that was well equipped to treat because she had taken abortion pills and encountered a rare complication where her body did not expel the fetal tissue. So she showed up at Piedmont Henry Hospital in need of a routine procedure, DNC. If you're a woman, you know what that is. But just that summer, her state, Georgia, had made performing the procedure a felony. With few exceptions, any doctor who violated the law could be prosecuted and face up to a decade in prison. She waited in pain in a hospital bed, worried what would happen to her 6-year-old son, sorry, not daughter, as doctors monitored her infection spreading, her blood pressure sinking, and her organs beginning to fail. It took 20 hours for doctors to finally operate, but by then it was too late. She
I
was
think I know. Like, I've seen that on like social media.
she was a 28-year-old medical assistant. She was going to be a nurse. She had children already. She didn't want to have another one. I'm assuming, I don't know why exactly, but I'm sure money had a lot to do with it. Wanting to become a nurse, it doesn't fucking matter. It's not my business. It's not,
Right.
no, it's no one's business what she does with her body. But now she's dead.
And then the thing is, you have people who are unqualified making decisions, and then the qualified people, the doctors who know what's needed, won't do it because they're afraid to go to jail.
Wouldn't it be awesome if there was a doctor that was like, I'm going to save this woman's life, and then I'm going to tell Kamala Harris personally, like, she better win and fucking pardon me and get me out of jail?
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
wouldn't that
but
be
like you said,
great?
it's easy to say it, but when your whole
Yeah,
life is in, like I get why
exactly.
people are scared.
Yeah, maybe
This is
that
the whole
doctor
reason
had a
why
family.
teachers
Yeah,
and librarians are banning books.
exactly.
Like we get
Yeah.
it. So there's this guy, I don't know if you've seen it. He's called, I don't even want to say his name, Date Right Stuff on
Mm,
like social media, and he's
gross.
always sitting there eating ice cream.
Mm.
So like maybe you recognize him
No,
by
I don't see that.
and so he always makes like these asinine questions while he eats ice cream. Kind
Oh,
of like
show me the
at
women
broke
that are
people.
bleeding out in parking
Yes.
lots. Oh, I have seen that fucking guy.
Okay. So yeah, and that's not even half of like
And then someone
what's wrong with it.
took that video and made a reel of all the women that have been impacted by this and have
Yes.
died.
So all over my social media, I see duets of women saying, "I'm one of those women,"
Hmm.
like, and then they'll tell their story.
These are the women that didn't die, obviously. Like,
Right. Like he's such an idiot, but
mm,
also the thing is, the right or the people who agree with him won't see the videos of these women. They'll
true.
just see him saying
I
this
was
stupid
wondering why that was in my feed. Because, like, that's the th like, you only see what you want in your feed.
right. And that guy, I think he is closely related with,
Heritage Foundation,
I think
Project
so.
2025, Moms for
Yeah.
Liberty. Stop me when you.
One of those. Hold on, let
Yeah,
me look because
they're all
now I am.
connected.
So yeah, so this guy is he's got the dating app, that a company that he started, but he actually does work for um the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025 directly. So this is straight from the heritage .org's page. On May 2nd, 2023, they posted John McEntee, which is this guy from the right dating guy or whatever, former director of the White House Presidential Personnel Office in the Trump administration, is joining the 2025 Presidential Transition Project
Of
as
course
a
he
senior
is.
advisor.
Oh my God. That guy?
That guy. Yep. So he worked for Trump directly and had like a top position, and now he's working for Heritage 2025, Project 2025.
Wait, could you hear me chewing just now?
No.
Okay, good.
You're
That's not
good.
surprising at all. It is discouraging.
Seeing his videos, he's such a tool.
The biggest tool. I just kept scrolling because I was like, I don't want to watch this tool. I mean, and then
Like
I was
who,
like, why am I getting this in my feed? And I realized they were like calling him out on his bullshit, which is good, but
yeah. But like his whole page is about that. And I'm like, how are you marketing your dating app? Like everything about you gives me the ick.
hmm
And of course, their response would be like, "Well, we don't want to date you, you fat ass," because that's, like come up with something new. But I'm like, yeah, but my daughter, who
hmm
is gorgeous, doesn't
Well,
want to date you either.
your daughter's gorgeous because you're gorgeous, but yes, you're right. She would never date him because of the ick factor.
Like guys like that are so gross.
hmm
Yuck.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are women who find him and people like him attractive.
Probably has
Just
a small
clearly,
penis, don't you think?
definitely. And maybe not even a small penis. I think maybe
Sorry to all
just
the
a
nice
shitty
small penis
lover.
people. Yeah, yeah, yeah. True.
Like,
But I just don't understand how people get the way that they get. There is a real study that shows how the brain literally changes with the more wealth and recognition that you get. So like the richer and more famouser that you get, the shittier you become. And there is
that
a
makes
study,
sense.
yeah, and of course they used real scientific language. But basically, it just comes down to empathy. Like people who have more money and power have less empathy. And they didn't start out that way, but like the more wealth and notoriety they gained, the more their brain changed to be more of like a self-motivated, self-centered center of decision making.
I mean, it makes sense, right? Like
hmm
we see that without doing a study, we see people
Yeah.
who become that way.
Like when
Um,
Sally Hunt became a school board member and got
yes,
like the
it
tiniest
got
bit
to
of
her
power,
head.
she just went crazy.
Yeah, we see it all the time.
hmm
And men like that have always had power.
hmm
So they've grown up to be dicks
Yeah,
their
that's
whole
true.
life, like it's
Yeah.
just,
Their whole life they were, they knew that they had a past that women didn't have.
yeah.
Like I see that so many times in life where I'm like talking to men that just don't shut up. And I'm like, if I talked as much as you, which I do sometimes, but then I would be labeled as like a woman who just talks too much, right? But
Yeah,
when men talk the same amount of as women, it's like, oh, they have something very important to say. We should all shut up and listen.
right. Yeah. Why were we talking about this guy?
I
Because
don't
he does
remember.
videos, right, about the women and how many women have responded
hmm
that, yeah, they have been close to bleeding out, and these are just the survival stories.
hmm
So there's this book, again, like just based off what you're saying, it touches on poverty, sexual assault by a family member,
hmm
illiteracy. And that's something else that we don't talk about enough. I was looking up the numbers on literacy statistics for 2024,
hmm
and it says on average, 79% of US adults nationwide are literate in 2024. That means 21% of adults in the US are illiterate. 54% of adults have a literacy below a sixth grade level.
Wow.
So 54%, that's a lot.
Below a sixth grade level, yeah. You would think the easiest solution to that would be to put more money into public schools, into public
Right.
education. But no, they want it the way that it is for a reason. And
Yeah.
just for the exact same quote that I read by Miss Rain, the teacher in this book, they know what they're doing.
And now you have people who have a sixth grade reading level homeschooling children.
Ugh.
So what, do you
Why'd you
like the
have to make that
cycle?
connection?
Yeah.
Did you make that
What's going to
connection?
happen to,
Damn
the
it,
next
did.
generation of kids?
Holy shit, that is a really good point. And I already know some, and I know you know some, and we're not
Yeah,
going to say their names out loud, but we know.
we know.
We know that some of y'all should not be homeschooling your kid. Like,
Yeah,
I am a professional educator who has many certifications, but I'll be damned if I have to teach my kids how to read. I don't know how to do that. I was
right.
never professionally, trained in how to teach small children how to read. It is not as easy as you think.
No,
It is not. Do you know what digraphs are? Do you?
no.
You don't, you see, you don't even
Diagrams?
know what digraphs are. No, like, I only know this because because my daughter was learning how to read during COVID. So I had to force myself to like figure this shit out, and it was not easy. Digraph is like CH makes the ch sound or PH makes
Oh,
the f
okay.
sound. Yeah. I didn't fucking know that. Now
No,
I
I
do.
wouldn't.
It still doesn't mean I can teach kids how to read.
Right.
Uh,
No, for
yeah.
sure. Like I
Hmm.
did okay homeschooling
Hmm.
during COVID,
It was
but I had a
temporary.
teacher. There was
Hmm.
someone who
Yeah,
kind of guided me along the
exactly.
way. So I was just background. I was an assistant. I could
Hmm.
do that. I can assist.
Right.
The actual job of teaching, no.
No,
No.
yeah. So yeah, I mean that just it goes back to the importance of this book and there's so many things in like that you said besides just like reproductive freedom to not having to carry your father's baby, right? But to, the importance of providing childcare for working families, so that they can go out and get the job that pays them enough to afford tutoring when your child
Right.
is falling behind, or the importance of free pre-K program, programs where students are taught how to read, and or the foundations of literacy when they're 2, 3, 4 years old, instead of like getting thrown into kindergarten and having no background whatsoever, and then just like slipping through the cracks until they become a 16-year-old illiterate student, like as is the case with Clarice Jones in this book.
Right.
So it's a very important book on, so you just pick a societal issue, and this book has it.
Yeah.
And they turned it into a movie, which is a really good movie. It has a huge cast. Have you seen the movie?
I haven't seen the movie either,
Okay, so watch
but
the
I've
movie.
seen enough like clips of it that I had an idea of what it entailed.
Hmm. So the actress that plays Clarice is
Gabby something?
Gabby is this article. I don't know. Sidibe.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not sure if she's in anything else, but damn, did she do a good job.
I think she has been in other things. She was, I think, in a but I just can't think of the name of it right now.
She's really she's a great actress in this. And her mom was played by Monique, which that reminds me, I'm going to share just like one thing because like I said, I read this a long time ago, but one thing that really stuck with me when I was reading this book was just the abuse that she suffered from her mom. And it was just so sad, and for I don't know why, just this is like the most memorable scene, one of the most memorable scenes of the book was her mom made her make dinner, right? So it's like her mom was almost also like the reason for her obesity, because she like forced her to eat all the time. And like
Mm.
there was the scene where she had to make like macaroni and cheese, fried chicken, cornbread, collard greens, like all of the things, right? And she forced her to make it all, and then she forced her to eat all of it off of her plate. And the scene was just so like heavy and sad. And then after her mom sexually assaulted her.
Oh
And
my
it
God.
just it really paints the picture of like how deep in this like hole that people can become, where it's like there's literally no way out, like, and it's so bleak, right?
Right.
But then she she is determined to learn how to read and write because that is empowerment, right? And so she gets it in her head that if she could just learn how to read and write, that she can get herself out of the situation, right? And that's what she does. And so she joins this GED program where Miss Rain, the teacher, is there, and they work together. And like I said earlier, not only does she learn how to read and write, but she like has this like dialogue in like the form of therapy with Miss Rain that really helps her move on to the next stage of her life and like figure out what she's going to do next and all that. So
It
it's just
also
like,
highlights the importance of education and
yes, yeah.
getting, and having those resources and those programs available to the public.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
we are
there's
losing those because we don't have the funds for it. We don't have teachers.
hmm Yep. There's a quote that she says, and she's talking to Miss Rain, and she says, I feel like I'm drowning in river. And then she says, she don't look at me like I'm crazy, but I say, if you just sit there, the river's gonna rise up and drown you. And then I think Miss Rain, the teacher, says writing could be the boat that carries you to the other side or something like that.
Wow.
So it's a really good book that explains the importance of how education can empower anybody, young, old, in between. And if you know how to read and write in this case, like you're a little bit better off to get out of the situation you're in. It's not a magical fix, but I think, then she goes to a social worker, which isn't in the book. I don't remember, but I remember it being in the movie because guess who plays the social worker?
I have no idea.
Really? Okay. My favorite, all-time favorite person, celebrity in the world. I can't explain why she's my favorite. I just have loved her ever since I could remember. Mariah Carey.
Really? I
Yes.
would have never guessed that's your favorite person like ever.
No one ever does. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, the only people who can match my obsession with Mariah Carey are gay men. So,
That's so funny.
I know.
Like
I
I
don't get
like
it.
her. I like her
Yeah.
music. Her voice is like
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I think everyone
phenomenal.
can
But
agree, like, that she's an icon and she's amazing, but not everyone, like, loves her, like, in
yeah.
that way. Like, my husband would be like, yeah, she's super talented. Like, she's got all these number one hits. Like, she's got more number one hits than the Beatles and Elvis. Like, but I think he would argue with me on that, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. But I have loved her ever since I was a kid. I don't know why. Like, I think she started, releasing albums in like 91, and I was 4 in 1991. So, like, it's one of the first musicians that I remember hearing and loving. And so
Right.
I've just been obsessed with her my entire life. But she
That's
plays the social worker.
huh.
And I remember being so excited about that and being like, oh, I read this book. Now I get to watch the movie and
Right.
Mariah Carey's in it. And I read an article or an interview with Mariah Carey, and like she's got a tiny little clip in it, but it's really good. Like, she does a really good job. But she reveals in her interview that like she kept trying to put on makeup, and the director was like, stop putting on makeup. That's not your character. Like, you're supposed to be a social worker who isn't wearing. She's like,
That
but I
sounds
want
like
to.
very much like
Yeah.
Mariah
She's like,
Carey.
but I want to feel pretty. And so I
That
just,
sounds like her, yeah.
yeah. So it's such a good movie. Lenny Kravitz is in it. Who else is in
Oh,
it?
I like him.
Yeah, I feel like Oprah is in it. I read somewhere. Hold on. Oh wait, or maybe oh no, she's just an executive producer. Oprah Winfrey and Tyler Perry were executive producers for the movie.
Okay.
hmm But
I
another
remember the
thing,
movie being a big hit when it came out. Like it was,
yeah, I want to watch it, but like I can't because my kids are always around. So
yeah, that
and
makes
they're
it
not
hard.
ready for that level of sadness. And that's like another conversation we always have. It's like just because like you and I are both, for the books and against censorship doesn't mean I'm going to show my 7-year-old Precious.
Right.
As good of a movie as it is.
And they love to act like that's what's happening.
Yeah. So
Or
stupid.
that like you're being forced to
Yeah.
read, like, here, take this book. You need
Yeah.
to take it. That's
Yeah,
not
that's
happening.
propaganda at its best.
Yeah. All the time. They're like, yeah, they're making kids read it. I'm like, it's on a shelf.
Mm-mm.
Have you been to a library? Most kids don't want to be there. That's the problem. That's why we're having a
hmm
literacy problem. Kids
And not
aren't
only
reading
that,
enough.
my daughter, who's 11, is like looking for these like higher level graphic novels. She can't get them in the kids section. And she's got to go out the kids section and like navigate a bunch of like, stacks of books to find the young adult graphic novel section.
Yeah.
And they're tall. She has to get a step stool to get them. Like, she
Right.
literally can't get them.
And that's the
She's
thing,
short.
some kids aren't ready for YA
hmm
and some kids can. Like there are advanced readers.
Yeah. She's
There
like,
are
Mom, I've
kids
read
that are
all the
mature.
books. Yeah. And she's like, this is too babyish for me. Like, I want, and like, I'm learning that her genre that she really likes is nonfiction, real stories. And like, she
Oh,
like
okay.
wants more and more of it. And I'm like, this one's kind of heavy. Like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah, and I'm like, okay. But it's just so sad because I saw somewhere, God, so much information. It's just information overload. Every time I see something, I'm like, oh, I got to talk about that on the podcast with Jennifer. But didn't you see like that public libraries are one of them in Florida is like lost like 50 books or something due to censorship? You didn't see that?
Don't remember that specifically, but I do know that it doesn't end at
School
school
library.
libraries. They
Yeah.
are definitely going after public libraries as well, which
hmm
is when anytime like I'm in a debates on Facebook with someone. They're like, get it at your public library. I'm like, bitch, you're going after those too. Like, shut up.
Yeah, I don't see where I saw it. The most recent article about it is in April, and librarians are fighting back. But you're right, it's not just school libraries. Like 4,000 unique titles were challenged in public libraries and school libraries in 2023. Um,
And let me tell you, when a city or has to cut their budget, the library is always the first place they go to cut budgets,
I know it's
which
terrible.
means less books on the shelves,
Hmm.
less media specialists and librarians there to find the books that kids are looking for, that adults are looking for.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's we don't take literacy.
We
Oh
don't
my God, what's the
care.
word?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't take it seriously
However,
enough.
there are wonderful organizations out there like the ACLU who are getting involved in suing, just like we've seen when in St. Johns County, the county right next to us, about Antango Makes Three and other books, not just Antango Makes Three, but we like to refer to that book because it's literally a book about penguins who are in love, but
Right.
it was banned
And a real
because people are
story.
crazy. Yeah. And so, but the silver lining here, and this can be like our five-star story before we end for the day, is that they're winning, right?
Yeah,
They won and they were able uh to get the books put back on the shelf. Did you see that?
I did see that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we do make some leeway. The
But it's not
problem is
enough. We
for
shouldn't have to
years,
be doing this.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because now it's been 2 to 3 years that kids have not had access to these books.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And also more time that like parents have been brainwashed into thinking that they need to care more about what their children are reading than what they're doing on their phones. It's just ridiculous. Like you should I don't want to sound like a broken record, but
No, I know, but we can't help it. Like every book, it's the same thing. We have to discuss that. At no point can a parent, at no point was a child forced to read a book without a parent being able to say, stop, I don't want you to read that.
Mhm.
But they make it sound always like, you know,
Yeah, it's just like with the
like they're grooming kids with these books. That's not
mhm.
happening.
Mm-mm. You know what we are grooming kids with is we are empowering them with education and knowledge and helping them see what has been being done to the public education system for far too long, which is, defunding it so that we can have these distinct classes of people, and then try and lie and say, oh, down economics is going to take care of us at the bottom here. But when you have access to books and you have the freedom to write and to express your ideas and to point out these things that we're seeing, like, hey, trickle down economics isn't a thing. It's not actually working here. Then what else are they going to do but ban those books to try and subdue those ideas that are
Right.
going to make them vote for the other person? That's really all
Right.
it comes down to.
Yep, absolutely.
So, this was a long one, but I think it had to be, right?
Yeah. And it didn't feel long, at least not to me.
No, because it was so important. And God, this book it's really short, honestly. And I didn't, want to tell you all the things, in case you do want to read it. But I think, those of you listening out there, it is a really good book. It's a short read, but it's a powerful read. The movie is so good. The movie is like, it's funny because like you can read a book and like have such stronger feelings than
Yeah.
watching the movie, you know? So like if you feel like you can't handle reading like those descriptions, then just watch the movie because you'll still at least, experience it in some way.
Right. I
But
definitely
it
want to
is,
watch the movie and I'll see because I do a lot of reading. So
mhm.
sometimes like adding a book, I'm like, ah,
I know.
but
It's
it
super
does sound
short
like
though.
something I would want to read at one
Yeah.
at some point.
Like remember when we covered Sold by Patricia McCormick?
Yeah.
That took me one day to read. Like
Yeah.
this is the same thing. It's super short.
See, you say I'm a fast reader, but it took me longer than a day. You're a
Well,
fast reader.
it's my ADHD. So like if I am like super interested in something, it's like lightning speed. But if the dopamine isn't there, I'll reread the same sentence like four times, which is
Yeah.
why I cannot finish A Court of Thorn and Roses. The series. I finished A Court of Thorn and Roses. I finished the second one, whatever the fuck that one was called, The Court of like biting and thrashing. But the third one I couldn't get into. And there's three
I
more.
love the series and I can't think of the name right now. Oh shit.
Akatar? What do you mean?
The second one
Oh, I don't know. A
of
Court of
Wings and Ruin.
Wings and something. Yeah, where she
Okay.
strokes his wings and
Like
he goes crazy.
I love that series. See, I'm a romanticy. I love
Yeah.
fantasy. So
Mm-hmm.
give me all those books.
Mm-hmm.
And you do more like this style book, more like
Yeah.
fiction, but
Yeah.
I read to escape.
Yeah.
So like I
Well,
like
I
to read
was really into like
all the
Harry
fluffy stuff.
Potter and like Lord of the Rings and stuff like
Yeah.
fantasy like that. But like, and so I was reading it with my sister and my cousin is like super into it. So she's like you. And my sister, I thought she would be too, but she's like, Courtney, I can't keep reading it. It's like the same thing over and over again. And at this point, I don't care what happens to Tamlin. So I'm like not even invested in what happens to Tamlin. Like,
Yeah, he doesn't become, well, I won't spoil it for anyone.
yeah. No spoilers, I guess. But it's not a bad series. Akatar's not a bad series. I just like, and that just goes to the point that we have made on this podcast so many times. Everyone has their own thing, right? In their own like style or genre that they like. And we should celebrate that and not take it away by banning books. Just because we don't agree doesn't mean that you can't read it. So
Exactly.
on that note, don't ban the books.
Ban bigots. This episode has been engineered and mixed by your hosts, Jennifer Mendoza and Courtney Green.
Thanks for listening, and be sure to follow us at MILF for Books, that's MILF, the number 4, books, on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, and X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it.
And don't forget to help the show by rating us wherever you get your podcasts.